the main reason I do this is because I want to make people feel the way I feel when I watch things. Like I just want people to come out of something happier, feeling better, like inspired, entertained. Like I just want to if I could just increase everyone's happiness by like 2% in their daily life, that would be amazing.
Welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. I have my good friend here.
How's it going, man? Happy to be back.
No, it shouldn't be about anything. Like, this is one life.
Yep, one life? Like, fucking do it.
My guy.
Like, she just got it. She totally understood it.
20 years old when I started just watching a lot of movies.
And it tells a story. I want to tell a story.
Talented animator and filmmaker, JD Kalantar. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, everybody.
Of course, man.
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you, man. So excited that you're here. This is the beauty about the podcast, as I always say, bringing creatives on this platform to share their journey, their kind of trials and tribulations. And, funny enough, we've met at Nima Naz's comedy show in Richmond Hill, Canada. He was performing there. And he did well, and through the course of conversation you saw me running around with a camera because I was recently hired there to do some video work for them, provide or contribute my directing and writing abilities. And you started a conversation with me about how I like filmmaking, or how I enjoy storytelling, and it came up that you were a animator, and I thought that was highly intriguing, interesting, and very new to this podcast, because I don't think I've ever had an animator as a guest. So I have, yes, right? So history's been made, guys. History's been made here. So upon, viewing your profile, I noticed that you're not just an animator. You have a mutual passion, as I do, with film, animation, and content creation. So I remember you telling me you were in the process of developing your portfolio with the recent purchase of the Sony A7 IV, which is an awesome camera. I'm kind of jealous because I got the A7 III. And I want to know, like, how has this new piece of technology I want to know basically, how did your interest in film and animation develop?
Right. I think for me, as a kid, the first kind of content you watch is animated movies. I feel like that's the thing parents put on because they're like, oh, it's family friendly. Yeah. And especially like, I don't know when you were born, but I was born in 93. And like, I feel like that was when kind of like almost the renaissance of like Disney animation. It was like Aladdin, what's it called? Tarzan, Mulan, Hercules, Lion King, like all these top-notch animated movies, like just good movies, not even animated movies, but good movies.
Yeah.
So, and I think as a kid, it started with like drawing. I love drawing. That was like my thing. I was like the kid in school that were like, oh, he's the good drawer. Like that's what kids would say.
Right. Your talent was founded early, eh?
Yeah, it was always like arts. Like arts was my thing.
Yeah.
And then I think over time, like the older I got, like the more I just loved watching TV and movies. And it kind of was a thing at the same time where like my interest in animation and TV and movies and filmmaking kind of like slowly increased as I got older. And I even started, I think a kid in my class in grade 7 made a video for a project. And I was like, whoa, you can do that. And I'd like never seen someone do that. Like the camera we had at home, like I think my sister had one digital camera, but the camera we grew up with was like had small tapes and you had to put them in.
Oh, like record. A film camera, like an 8mm?
Yeah.
Oh wow, Super 8? Wow.
So it was like, I remember the first video I made with my mom helped record it, and she would like stop, that was the cut, okay, record, stop. And then when I got introduced to Windows Movie Maker, I was like, what? And that was when it was like game over. And then I got to use my sister's digital camera. And then me and my friends were just like making, I think my first legit video I made in grade 8 with my friend. And the story makes no sense. It's terrible, but it's just
gotta love a child's imagination.
My Facebook. Yeah. But it's weird. Like, it's like each thing kind of progressed more, like my like filmmaking interest grew a bit, and then I got back into animation. Then I got into flash animation because that was big at the time in high school, and I had a class Comtech where you could like do an animation. So I was like, cool, like now I can do this at school. So
Right.
I got to spend a lot of time into that. And then I entered like a contest and, you know, I won and I was like, oh, cool. Like I'm good at this. But then at the same time, I was still like into, you know, filmmaking. But I feel like for me, animation was just like an easier into like a job I would like to do.
Yeah,
Like
for
I
sure.
feel like filmmaking just seemed like, because now with we'll get into that, but now with social media, like it's so much easier in a sense to potentially launch a career. Whereas like
100%.
when I was growing up, YouTube was like just like there were like a few people on YouTube that you'd be like, oh my God, did you hear this guy on YouTube? But that's kind of how it started. I don't know. I
No,
kind of just rambled.
No, listen, man, like thank you for that background story, like because I have a better insight on where you're coming from, and it's highly relatable. You know, I'm just a year younger than you, 94, and I grew up with those same movies. You know, my mom would come home with all those VHSs. I still have them too. I refuse
Yeah.
to sell them. Jungle Book was my favorite, still the Jungle Book, original 67, not the new one.
Nice.
But yeah, storytelling through Disney, you know, knows no bounds, and it's touched the lives of many children, and inspired us to become creatives, right? Like you're absolutely right. I love that you said we all start off watching animation, most of us, because it's true. Like I want to be a film director. I am a film director, and my earliest pieces of movies that I would watch was The Jungle Book, right? Pinocchio, Dumbo, like those kinds of movies.
Mhm.
And they're just so beautifully told and captivating that anyone of all ages could enjoy them, right? Like my parents were watching them with me, right? Which is crazy. And still to this day, I enjoy them because of the masterful artwork that is put into play, right? So I'm really
Yeah.
happy we have that mutual understanding and that appreciation for animation. You know, like touching on the fact that you were said, like Lion King and the Renaissance of Disney, like all those movies that
Mhm.
came out. Is there a particular movie or brand or animator themselves that inspires you, your styles of work?
I feel like it's like I'm so like I feel like the best way to describe me is like a little bit of everything. Like
Got
I
it.
mean, to be fair, I guess what I really focus on content wise is more comedic. But that's why I've always loved the idea of directing, is because you're kind of doing a bit of everything. Like you're involved in every part of production, which intrigues me. Like that's always been my struggle, is like sticking to just one thing. You know, like that's why even with animation, once I got into animation as a career, I started to get to the point where I was like, you know, this is kind of like boring in a sense where I'm like, I don't know if I could just do this the rest of my life. And that's when I really got back into filmmaking and, you know, started to do that steadily. But as a kid, I think just like Disney in general, like the movies got me inspired. And then actors who inspired me were like Jim Carrey, Robin Williams. Like growing up, like those are like my heroes.
Nice.
And then now, like the older I've gotten, like directing wise, I think Edgar Wright's my number one. Like he's someone where I'm just like, there's just so much creativity in what he does. And I feel like he's one of those people where, similar to like Tarantino, where like they only do movies when like they made it and like they've been really working on it. They
Love
don't
that.
just like crank it out.
Because
So
I told you that
like
when I
Edgar
met you,
Wright.
like Tarantino
Yeah.
was my hero, right? So we see eye to eye on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved Edgar Wright. Matthew Vaughn's another one I really like.
They're all tours,
Obviously,
right?
the big ones.
They're all
Yeah.
tours, right? Like I always say, they're the whole vision, right? They're not just,
Yeah.
oh, I got hired to write or I'm the director on this. It's like, no, this is my baby.
Exactly.
So when you say Edgar Wright, I think of, you know, Scott Pilgrim, Baby Driver, Tarantino
Mhm.
obviously has his selection. And when you watch them, it's very personal, you know, like the way it's made and how it's constructed. You understand that this is someone's film.
Mhm.
And like, yeah, like how you said, Matthew Vaughn, he directed Kick-Ass, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another
Kingsman,
example,
like
right?
those ones. Yeah.
And all those movies, if you notice those styles of filmmakers, this is what I mean by it's very personal, is that although they're stylized, they kind of transcend this live action genre. You know what I mean? Like they're all told, they're not animated movies by no means, but it's almost like you're watching an entertainment piece. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like bigger than life, bigger than you. And that's why I enjoy Tarantino movies. You know, when I go there, just the way the characters speak, characters don't speak like that in real life. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone has like a rhyme, a rhythm, a snap. And it's like, imagine if everyone was that articulate, right? Like eloquent when they spoke. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. But Django Unchained, right? Like the antebellum South. a lot of illiterate people, but yet they spoke Tarantino dialogue. Like it's just amazing how he encapsulates that universe, right? And I can go on for days about how much I appreciate. No, I'm serious, man. Like I just love that storytelling. That's something I aspire to emulate, right? As a filmmaker myself. And I'm sure as I send more projects to you, you'll see that more and more. So I'm really happy that we have that mutual understanding of the best filmmakers. So going back to this role of an animator, not sure if you can disclose who you work for.
I can.
Who you work for, by the way?
Well, right now I'm currently working at Elliott Animation. I've been here for about 2 years, almost 2 years. But
nice. And what do you do there exactly? Like, is it character design and things like that?
No, I'm just a senior animator on the team. Actually, it's a show called Lucas the Spider. It was like a big YouTube sensation, and then it got picked up as like an actual series. So
wow,
you can easily like search it. The originals are on YouTube, and they even post clips of the episode on.
Awesome, man! I'm gonna check that out. Everybody listening, that better check it out. I really mean
go check out Lucas the Spider.
Everybody. Yeah, right. I really mean this, man. Like I'm so excited when you said you're an animator. I'm like, yo, this is so interesting. This puts you in a different like category for me. Like,
I know. I feel like every time someone asks me and I tell them, it catches. I don't think it's ever not caught someone off guard. Like every time they're like, oh, that's never heard that one before.
No, it's amazing.
But it's surprising. Man. Like, I don't know, to me, like, I guess because I'm in the world, like I see so, like now it's so much more accessible. Like when I was getting into like school for animation, it was kind of like Sheridan, and then like a few others were like, okay.
Right.
I went to Durham College and I loved the course. You could choose like 2 year, 3 year. I did the 2 year, and then I like graduated, got a job, all good. But now I feel like there's courses like iAnimate and Animation Mentor where you can just like pay for a course online, do it at home, do a course for like 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and then you have like a couple pieces and you make a demo reel and you can get hired. So now I see like this huge growth of animators in the world. And to me, I'm like, there's so many people animating, but yet when I bring it up, people are like, what? I've never met someone who animates. And I'm like, that's crazy to me.
That's amazing, man. No, honestly, like my good friend Christian, shout him out. He's been kind of like my right-hand man, like guiding me through the process of filmmaking and, providing his business acumen, whatever have you. But the point what I'm trying to make is he's always pressing on me, pushing the idea that animation is going to take over and you better be ready as a filmmaker. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be, a filmmaker of animation. Like I would honestly, as a tribute to my childhood and, the films I grew up with, speaking of Disney, would love to make an animated movie. I think I have the know-how to do it as a director, that is not animator with any sense, but I feel like as a director of animation, you have to have some sort of understanding of animation. Would that make sense?
Yeah, you definitely do have to have like a pretty good eye for animation. Like mostly the director's job is reviewing your shots. Like you have leads who first review.
But a lot of directors, what I'm saying at Pixar, like we're former senior animators and things like that.
Yeah,
it's a
usually,
trend. Yeah, like you're never gonna have. Well, I've like Spielberg has done, I think, animation right in the past, or like
Tintin,
like,
was that what he did?
Yeah, or was that Scorsese? I don't know.
No, I think that was
scenes. Oh yeah, no, who did Scorsese did one? Oh, that was Hugo, but that was an animation.
Hugo,
right?
Yeah.
Either way, like creativity knows no bounds. Who knows where it's gonna head? But it's nice to know that there's that possibility, right? My parents always, I can't wait to tell them about this conversation we're having. But like, you're the embodiment of exactly what my mom and dad wanted me to do, to have that safe and like structured kind of path. Because it's true, right? Like you're able to like work and still have a life and things like that. I'm all over the place because I'm trying to be entrepreneurial in what I'm doing, but to each his own, right? At the end of the day, I really didn't have as much passion, I don't think, as you, and probably the talent, I'll be honest. Like I sketch, I draw, I can show you some artworks after. I don't know if I showed you before, but you know what I mean? The point is that I think like, the creativity is like boundless. Like I said, like there's just so many ways in which to explore it, but good to know that you were able to have the courage to do it yourself. So I want to credit you for that.
Sorry, you froze for a second. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
Oh, no problem. I just want to say I credit you for having the courage to pursue animation, like that career. because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
something that I never did for myself. And not that I regret it or anything like that. It's just, again, my parents like were always like, why didn't you go to Sheridan and work for
Yeah.
Disney? And you know what I mean? Like, do something like that. And I'm like, listen, guys. So I've yet to prove them wrong, but nevertheless, how has this career path that you've chosen as an artist enriched your life?
Honestly, like I think, like I was saying before, like with animation, I feel like now has grown a lot more. Like it's a lot more accessible to people. So I feel like I've met so many like creative people in my life who I would have never met if I didn't get into animation.
Right.
And also in animation, jobs are 99% of the time like contract based. So its turnover is really quick and you're constantly moving. So that way you're meeting a lot more people and you're working on new projects more often than a lot of other people who work like a 9 to 5 job and are just at the company for like 15 years, you know?
Yeah. Now, is
So
it
like,
always creative or is it tedious? I should add.
I mean, sometimes you'll be on a project that's not super inspiring to you, or, you know, because most of the projects I've worked on are kids' TV shows. I've yet to work on a project that's for like older audiences or something I would be really interested
Young
in.
adults. Yeah, I got you.
So, but like Lucas the Spider's super cute. It's just like a spider that's kind of in like a realistic world, and it started with an animator from Pixar who made it himself.
Awesome.
But you know, like I worked on a show like Fancy Nancy, which was like, you know, about like a young girl and her family. And, you know, I'm not super attached to it, but you know, there are moments and it changes. Like some episodes, like when you watch TV, there's like some episodes that aren't as interesting and some episodes that are really entertaining.
Of course.
So it's the same thing. Like you could get a sequence of an episode where you're like, this is awesome. And you're like immediately inspired. You're like banging it out. And then you get one sequence that sucks and you're just like chugging through, like just trying to get it out on time because you're like, please just, or, you know, sometimes it's even you like the sequence, but you and the director aren't seeing eye to eye on like what the goal is of the shot, like what they want. So you're struggling back and forth with notes, and then you're just like, I just need to get this approved.
Yeah. I understand.
So,
well, that's interesting, man. Like, you know, you can't call it dull, right? There's always something happening, something eventful. But that's great. That it's important that you love what you do. We can agree on that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cute. And by the way, Lucas's Spider, I searched it up. I watched that short on Disney Plus, and that's a great project.
Yeah.
Like that it's very cute and has a lot of potential. So congrats on that. But yeah, like, you know, have you ever thought of like writing your own material for like to develop into your own animation project?
I have, but like I think the thing a lot of people don't understand with especially 3D animation, not that 2D animation isn't hard, they're totally different things, but with 3D animation, you have to first write the idea, then you have to model like the characters, basically like create them in a 3D, like a 3D model of it. And then you need someone to rig it to basically put the like the control so that you can actually move it to animate it. Then you have to animate it.
Right.
Then you have to light it. Then you have to render it. Like there's so many steps to get to the end product that people see in a movie and go, oh, I could make that. And I'm like, no one person can do that themselves and be sane or enjoy it. Like you need a team, at least a small team of people where like, you know, someone's like, oh, you know, okay, I can animate and do lighting, you can model and rig, and then someone will render. But to do it by yourself is so much work. And I feel like that's why I went to live action filmmaking more. Like that's where my peak interest is because I just like the idea of like getting a camera and like shooting something, and you can make it much easier like on the fly than animation. So much like pre-work just to get to the finished product. If that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. You know, like it's like with anything, it's a process. You know, it's not gonna happen like tomorrow. Something that you have to constantly develop at. It's a craft at the end of the day. The reason why I ask is because there's always like projects myself. Like I'm always writing. I'm a writer director, and there's a project we can talk offline. But there's even a project like no, seriously, there's a project that like I was developing with a friend and pitched it to Netflix years ago, and it was animation based, and it's in that young adult kind of category.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that if you don't write those projects yourself, it doesn't mean that you can't apply those skill sets, right? And that expertise. Because someone like yourself, man, would not only serve as an animator, but a consultant on teaching me as a director, like how I would, you know what I mean, delegate tasks, or how I would inform you about certain directives. So anyway, that's something that's really exciting. That's just how my brain works. I'm thinking of something else I could do. But this is great. So anyway, let's get into your work, because social media is a platform that you utilize to showcase your work. And, you know, as we know, provides a myriad of opportunities for creatives, filmmakers, and entrepreneurs to develop, execute, and market their ideas. And that is evident with Nima Naz, that show we went to. Nima Naz is a rising comedian in Toronto who started off that way. And just goes to show, man, right? It's a little bit of an inspiration that you could start from anywhere, and just with a little bit of consistency and hard work, you can get there. It's just a matter of how much you want it. So I want to get back to now, ever since we connected through Instagram, I've seen your consistent work ethic and producing highly engaging and entertaining content. You've even used your talented abilities as an animator to produce some unique works like the Jurassic World Dominion clip featuring a CGI raptor mowing the front lawn of a suburban home. Like that was breathtaking. That was amazing animation. Like for me, right? Like for a viewer, like it did the job, you know? How important is social media for you as an artist?
I think it's super important in this day and age. It can be very frustrating, but it is. I think it is essential. Like we talked about earlier, potentially you could put, you know, like your short film, like your new one, or like I put like some of the shorts I've made in the past on YouTube, and you never know, you know, the right person could see it. You know, you tweet it to someone, you send it to someone, they know someone who can connect you to it, and then you're in the directing seat where you wanted to be all along. So I think that's why, you know, social media is amazing. Like that Jurassic World one you just spoke about, I tweeted it, and someone commented and tagged like an account that's called But With Raptors, where it's an account where they take scenes from movies and composite like raptors into it, like their heads on characters and stuff.
Oh, like that's all they do. Like it's
that's all they do.
Okay.
And they retweeted my video, and they have like 100,000 followers. So it like got to like 6,000 likes, and I was like, what? And you know, and I grew in followers.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know, it's just like that one thing, you know, could blow you up, which is great.
But I'm happy for you. You know, it's well deserved because you're a talented guy. And I look at that. I'll be honest with you. When you said you're an animator and into film and you have a camera and whatever, like obviously you create work, but I didn't expect to go on your Instagram and see that activity, right? Like making little clips of like guy mowing the lawn. Like I just thought that was in a way beneath you, right? Because you know these animators, right? Like they're just like, oh, I got a job to do and I do profound work, but you're having fun with it. And that's what I like, right? You're in the spirit of creating content, as we've been told, right? So good for you, man. No, it looked good to me, and it was really hilarious.
It was a lot of work.
You act in it too, I should mention. Like he's not just putting up little like characters, right? Like amazing work. So that's cool. And that's what it is, right? Like you keep putting yourself out there, keep being consistent, and you'll have accounts like that that'll retweet it. You know what I mean? That'll retweet it, repost it, whatever have you. So yeah, that's great. That I'm glad that it's benefiting you in that way. Do you believe social media though is progressing your career forward in the industry, or is it hindering like the value of storytelling in an overly saturated market of content?
Like I think it's the I think it's like there's good and there's bad to it. Like I totally do think it is progressing, and I think there's the possibility that, you know, I hope that one day I do get the right person to see my work, you know, because I'm starting to make more legitimate short films and I've started, like last year I put them in festivals. I'd never done that before, and you know, I started to win some awards, and I was like, oh, that's great, you know. So that's what I'm actually filming something in a week-ish, like a new short film I wrote. So, you know, I'm just trying to like put myself out there, put my work out there, and kind of take it more seriously in a sense, because I think when I was posting before, people just thought of it as like, oh, you just make funny YouTube videos. And I'm like, no, to me, these are like short films that I'm making, and I'm just posting on YouTube because where else am I going to post it?
No, they are.
Right?
They're short films. Obviously, I'm sure like the ones you won awards for have a little bit more of a substance to them than the
Yeah.
Raptor one. But I love that you said that. They are short films. Like even when I
Mhm.
first started, I didn't have any dialogue. I used music to tell the story. It was all visual.
Yeah.
And some people would argue, oh, like when are you going to do scripted stuff? Like this isn't storytelling. I'm like, no, it is. Like actually
Mhm.
film. Like the reason why I started off that way, I didn't. It was strictly because of necessity. Like I didn't have the budget to own audio
Yeah.
equipment, and I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest. With editing, I was very bare bones. But at the same time, I remember Alfred Hitchcock, legendary filmmaker. He once said, being able to tell a story through visuals, as film is intended to be, you'll be far more ahead than the other filmmakers that choose not to, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And I believe in that. Like if you're able to, because film is, when I edit my sequences or when I edit films, vlogs, whatever I have you, when I scrub it and I go back and forth, if I don't like see a gist of a story, like, get a sense of it, you know what I'm talking about?
Right.
Visually, then it's like, then there's nothing to be said here. Like there's no story, like the audience won't follow it. Do you get what I'm saying about scrubbing it, like going back and
Yeah.
forth? Yeah. It's very interesting how film is a medium. If you put it on mute and you watch it, obviously you'll miss certain key points like
Yeah.
dialogue and things like that. But any great movie, you put it on mute, you'll know exactly what's going on. Like I'm just thinking for some reason Finding Nemo, because we're thinking of animation, like put that on
Mhm.
mute, you'll know the whole story.
Yeah.
And you'll have an imagination of like what they're talking about in your head.
It's funny you just said that because I saw a video on Twitter. Some guy took, I forget which Batman movie it is. It's the one with Jack Nicholson as Joker.
Right.
But someone edited a sequence of that movie and made it like an old silent film with like no dialogue. And someone was just like, that's how great of a visual storyteller. Like, I forget the director.
Wait, is this the last Batman?
No, not the newest one. Like the older one with Jack Nicholson as the Joker. I just
You're
can't
saying
remember.
like they're trying to show, like prove how well storytelling.
Yeah, like they just,
yeah.
for some reason, like someone was like, I think it'd be interesting to edit this sequence of the movie as like a silent film, and how well it works. Like everyone was like, this is amazing. But like that just goes to show how well directed it was, that without dialogue, you can totally understand everything that's happening in the sequence. Just exactly like you said.
Awesome. Yeah, honestly, like just going back to like social media as a platform, how beneficial it is for artists. When I hear stories like that, like you would have never been able to do that 10, 20 years ago, right? Like just be able to post something like that of, your creative intuition and showcase it, right? Like go viral, get people to follow you, get people to be involved, invested in your brand. That's a huge thing. So I'm really, really excited about that. And that's what I kind of tell people, like even for myself, because I'm very like on and off. I have a love-hate with social media.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, I always say like I would abandon it, but I can't, because it's something that serves me, and you need to be with the times. But what I'm saying is, like you just got to look at always the positive side of it. And in order to avoid being consumed by it, learn to produce more than you consume. Right. So glad you have the same mindset with that. Now, how do you handle the negative feedback or criticism that pertains to either your work or you as an individual?
Well, the funny thing is, as an animator, you're basically getting critiqued every day for the rest of your career, because every day you put your shots up and the director looks at it and goes, "Oh, this is good," or they go, "No, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that." And this starts from your first day as an animator to like 20 years in the business.
Even
like
if you're a legendary animator, right?
You're all equal. You put all your work up there and you're all getting judged. And like, there's still moments where you're like, oh God, is it good? Like, are they going to like it? But at the end of the day, you have to know your ability and like what you're producing and say, I know I put my, hard work and effort into this. I think I did a good job. I'm sure. And you know who you're working with. Like, with a director, 99% of the time you're going to get good feedback, like whether it's positive or like critical, but it'll still be in like a good way to make your work better. Whereas online, you post your video on TikTok or YouTube and you could just get someone who's just not nice, and they'll just say something just
for the hell of it.
Just to make themselves laugh or do something. But you just got to brush it off. And the irony is I would consider myself a fairly sensitive person, but yet I want to be in the fields where like you
thick
probably get
skin.
criticized the
Yeah, I
most.
get it, man. But you're an artist, man.
But
You're an artist
yeah,
at heart, right? Like that's why you're sensitive. Yeah.
it's your baby. Like you're like every
Yeah.
time you're like, don't hurt it.
I'm literally dealing with this now. Like, it's not nothing bad or anything, but like you edit a piece of work, put it out there, and it's like it's part of the collaboration. Like you have to accept notes. Working at Impact Theory, I was telling you about that. Like it was just part of the job. You would submit an edit, you would think it's the best. A lot of times, like it was a couple of notes, revisions, and then there was just as equal amount of times heavy revisions. Like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? And I think that's where it comes from, detaching from the ego. Like, unless you really know it's like going to make it or break it, pick and choose your battles, like know where to like expel your energy. Like assert your energy, because it's not worth it, even for your insanity. And also like it's about the bigger vision,
Exactly.
like I'm editing this piece now, and like when I look back at the notes, it's like, I'm happy I was receptive about the notes because it actually improved the quality of this project.
Right.
And I'm sure you could say the same, right? It's like as much as you're attached to your little outputs or like your contributions in animation, when a director gives you feedback, and you look at the final product, or you take a step back, you're like, oh, it's a good thing he told me this, or it's a good thing I kind of reassessed it. Sometimes the feedback actually inspires you to think of it from a different angle altogether, right? So you don't even use their note or your note, you just discover something even new, right? So it's a collaborative process. So happy you said that. As artists, we have to tell ourselves each day that it's not going to just end right when you make it. When you win that Oscar, you still get crap, like poor Scorsese, 80-year career practically. And, won an Oscar, Palme d'Or, all that. And he still couldn't get funding for The Irishman, like from a studio. So just goes to show you, like, you're nothing until you're something, and vice versa, I guess.
And even then you're like never untouchable. Like you're all,
exactly
you're always fighting for a spot in the spotlight. Like you're never, like, even just on famous directors like Spielberg, I feel like went on like such a amazing stretch, and then had like some movies that weren't amazing, but then but people forget, you're like, to go on that run that he did is like unheard of. Like, like to make movies like
100%. Are you kidding me? A lot of his
Indiana
friends
Jones,
too, like
Jurassic Park, all, you're like,
the stretch, like
people fight to just make one of those movies in their lifetime, and he made many fantastic, like top 100 movies of all time.
And he's gonna be immortalized because of it. Like, you're absolutely right. And if you look at his friends, like the Brat Pack that he came up with, Scorsese, George Lucas, Francis Ford Coppola, Brian De Palma, Scorsese has a good run as well, but the other three, like, they just kind of died out, like they kind of couldn't like that. I love that you said that. Is 10 years, but talk to me when it's like 40 years. Like, do you know how hard that is to keep relevant? And a lot of people don't realize either, like, but what you just said, how he had that like timeline or that space where kind of like, meandering, or like, people didn't really like mess with this stuff. Like, imagine, like, he still had to go through that decade or so, like doing that. And he was still inspired and encouraged every day to keep putting out stuff, like keep making films. Like most people maybe would be like, oh no, it's not a masterpiece, then I don't want to do it anymore. But this guy still went for it. And now he has a beautiful project. I heard, I haven't watched it yet. It's getting praised at the Toronto International Film Festival, won the People's Choice Award, The Fablemans.
I can't wait to see that.
I can't wait to see it either, right? So it's like, there you go, right? Like he kind of was like, oh, is he gone? He did West Side Story. I should give him credit for that. But what I'm saying is, like, millennials, our generation didn't really mess with it. That's what I mean. Like, the market decides. Right? He could be the biggest director in the world with the biggest budget. Market will decide if it's good or not. It was a good movie. It just wasn't for definitely not for our generation. Because I was watching it, I'm like, this is way too whimsical and wholesome. Like, our generation.
Beautiful, like filmmaking standpoint, but definitely 100%. Like story wise, it feels dated in a sense of like,
it's irrelevant.
I just couldn't super get into it.
There's, like, don't get me wrong, there's still racism and discrimination and poverty and all that stuff, but the way in which the story was told, it's like, it's in a, like, if you're gonna make a movie like that, it has to be fucking like gritty and like dark, and it has to be like ruthlessly true,
right?
It felt very like, you know what I mean, like one dimensional, like typical, like, the two different classes, like a Romeo and Juliet. But again, with this whole like woke society, like just how we're conditioned, like we don't see the world that way anymore. There's a lot of layers and complexities to it. So that's what I meant by it was just too wholesome, I believe, too whimsical.
Yeah.
But still, man, he's still the master, man. Like good for him. Like I can only, wish at that age I was be that relevant and still putting out great content.
Mhm.
He's definitely created a brand for himself. So that's awesome. Yeah. And you gotta like, just back to the negative feedback. You can't let it eat away at you because everyone's going to have an opinion, as proven with the people we just mentioned. Like I still remember Django Unchained, man. I would come out of the theater like, yo, like my mind was blown. I'm like, I want to be a filmmaker. Like I want to do that. Because films up until that point, I was watching Spielberg. I was watching like just other like films in general, like Robert Zemeckis. And they're great and all, but it didn't feel like them, like their stamp. And a lot of people might attack me for that. But I don't know how to explain it. With Tarantino, it was like, holy shit, like this guy took control of the audience and like didn't let go until the movie was done. Like my eyes never glossed over, and it was just so like I love it, edgy storytelling. But my point being is I came out of the theater, loved it, called my friend up, yo, we got to see it, whatever. He's like, bro, I already watched it. I'm like, oh yeah, what'd you think? And he's like, yo, it was so cheesy, I didn't get any of the dialogue. I'm like, what? I literally was about to hang out. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, bro, he's like, the zoom ins, the freaking dialogue, like the way he was talking about having a Candyland. And I'm like, are you at it? And I'm like, oh my God. So I hung up the phone. I'm like, month later, when's the Oscar for best screenplay? Like, you see what I mean? Like everyone's gonna have an opinion. You just got to pray that the market outweighs whoever's on the other end of that phone call. Right. But that's great. I'm glad you have a good head on your shoulders and you're positive about it, because that's what you got to be, man, as an artist.
Yeah.
And that's great. So storytelling, back to that, is such a wide ranging art form that it touches on several mediums, including film, animation, and social media. And I want to know from you, like, are you looking to take your storytelling ambitions to the next level? I know we mentioned short films, but do you see yourself being like a director for feature films, like an animated feature? Is this kind of like the end goal for you? Like, what do you imagine?
Yes, 100%. That is the end goal. Even like I would love to direct television too, but I think I definitely just want to get into directing full time as my job. And that's why I was saying I want to make more short films and put them into festivals and try to build more connections, like with yourself, people more in the industry, so that you can slowly kind of wiggle your way to where you want to get, but that's the one good thing, not the one good thing, but a great thing about animation that I think a lot of people don't think about is it's very like everything you learn in animation is applicable to live action filmmaking. Like you learn storyboarding, framing, like timing, like you learn everything that you would need to know if you were directing live action. Like if anything, I found a lot of directors who have directed animation, I feel like translate to live action like even better. Like they make movies Brad Bird did Incredibles and then did like Mission Impossible 4, which is probably one of the best ones other than the one recently. Like
great example, by the way. That was exactly the example I would use. Yeah.
But like and Incredibles, I think is just like a top. I love that movie so much. I think that movie in general is just a great film. And I think another thing as an animator is that I think people misunderstand that like animation is like a genre, but it's a medium. Like you can make any genre with animation. Like we were saying, like people associate it with children and kids stuff.
No,
but like I don't know if you've seen Arcane on Netflix.
No, but I heard great things though.
But that was a series that was for older audiences, and it was beautiful. Like the animation was fantastic. Great style. Yeah. And Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse was like a huge hit. Like 100%. People loved that movie. All audiences. Like I feel like I definitely think we're starting to get into like another level of animation, especially with COVID hitting and showing that animation can keep going through a pandemic. Like that's what it was like. It boomed. That's when I could work from home. Studios were hiring, more projects were going because
animation boomed. Yeah, for sure. I would believe like for you. Yeah.
And there's a new series. What's his name? Kid Cudi just released on Netflix that looks like a Spider-Verse style series, and it's definitely for older audiences as well. So it's nice to see like a widening, of the scope of animation, that it's for everybody. everybody. Like it doesn't, it's for kids, it's for adults, it's for teens, all these different genres.
No, I see you on that. Another medium that I wanted to mention is music, like music videos, especially. How much I'm seeing more and more. There's a director I follow, Cole Bennett, Lyrical Lemonade. He integrates a lot of animation into his videos. I don't know if you watch that.
No,
you watch
I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, he's a badass director, but it's not entirely animated, but he'll splice in animation
Nice.
into like Eminem videos. Like it's just crazy how he blends it all. And yeah, man, like I think that's really exciting. And there's, again, from the beginning, creativity knows no bounds. Like it's so important. That's why I do this podcast. It's so important for me to connect with people like yourself, because if there's a project I want to do, or like, there's something we can create together, I know who to reach out to. Right. And it's a great experience for you too, right? Because it could, like, you can kind of get involved more into the film world and like understand, like as a live action director, like how I see things, and we could find that voice together, right? That magic. Awesome, man. So, do you see yourself pursuing the role of an actor in the filmmaking process, or actively practicing your skills like as a screenwriter as well?
Actor, not like, I mean,
you just do it for the content.
Yeah, like I just do it because I'm like, I need to put something out. Let me just film this. Like I would try to limit my acting to like a small cameo, and I'm actually doing a small cameo in my new short film.
Right.
But screenwriting, yes, definitely. Like I've gotten like a bunch of books recently, like over the past year, and I've been reading, definitely just trying to take all aspects of my filmmaking to the next level, like getting the Sony A7 IV, being able to like take that quality to that next level, and then step up my writing quality, because majority of what I've posted on all my channels are like my ideas, like scripts I've written, because the way I started on YouTube was just making videos with my friends. My friends were like people who wanted to be actors, and they were good. And so I was like, yeah, I got an idea. Do you want to just like film this? And then I got to the point where I was like, hey, I wrote a script. Like, let's try this. And then, we put a little more effort into it. And then it got to the point where I made that one. It's called Cleanup Crew. That's the one I've been sending to like festivals last year. And it won like a silver award like for the best action short. And,
that's awesome, man. Send me this stuff, man. I got to see it.
Yeah, I will.
Thanks, man. That's great, man. And that's what it is, right? It's all about kind of figuring out your role in the filmmaking process, what you specialize in or what you excel in, or really what just touches your heart the most, like is passionate about. For me, like I've learned, I've always wanted to be, and I continue to be a writer director, but I was told at many networking events, and when I would talk to seasoned directors, like you could be pigeonholed, you could be put into like as an editor or a DP. You don't know where it's going to take you.
Right.
And when I heard those words, I refused to be pigeonholed to anything, but I've learned more as I do projects is no, like I'm a director, like I see the vision from start to finish, and I enjoy coordinating and delegating to reach that vision, as opposed to being one of the players involved. Right. And that's just something that you have to be honest with yourself. And the only way you're going to achieve that is if you believe it first. No one's going to tell you, no, you should be a director. Right.
Exactly.
So I think that's so important that you have that conviction and that realization, like what you want to do with projects, and that can always change. But for me, no, like yourself, you're always going to be an animator at heart, right? Like I'm always going to be a writer director at heart. No matter what I do, if I edit a project, I'm always going to be that writer director. I'm always going to be thinking about the next project I'll direct, right? So I think it's so important that you have that. So keep doing that. Yeah. So what motivates you the most to be a storyteller and continue this arduous yet rewarding path of an artist, before we end off?
What motivates me? Like it's so many things motivate me. It's just like what you said. Like when you came out of Django, you were like, I want to make, like, you're like, I'm ready to film something. I want to be a director. I want to do this. That's me when I come out of certain movies, like, or a show. Like I'll watch something and immediately be like, I need to make something as good as this. Like that's my goal. Like the main reason I do this is because I want to make people feel the way I feel when I watch things. Like I just want people to come out of something happier, feeling better, like inspired, entertained. Like I just want to, if I could just increase everyone's happiness by like 2% in their daily life, that would be amazing. Like, just if you watch one of my videos and it even just made you go like this, I'm like, that's a win. That's something,
And it's, that's what happened to
happier
me
than
with the
you
Raptors.
were, you know?
Yeah, what the Raptors did, bro. No, I'm serious. It was like impressive. Yeah. But that's a win for you. Like, that's what you look for. You strive for. That's amazing. Man.
Yeah. I just want, the main thing is I want people to feel as inspired as like I feel when I see an Edgar Wright movie, like when I came out of Baby Driver, or, you know, like, I don't know if you've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, that was
no, I
another
have
movie
yet to. But
where
that's what I
was
mean
like,
by integrating animation, right?
yeah.
I've seen clips of it. Yeah.
But I just want to make stuff that make people feel good and, you know, want to talk and inspire them to make stuff and continue that cycle, you know.
Emotional investment for sure, man. Like that's
Yeah.
what people don't understand. I don't know if it's Tarantino that said it, or just it's just a common knowledge thing. But human beings thrive off emotion. That's how they operate. So with film, like, creativity is a very fine balance. You can't make a stupid movie to the point where it's illogical and you're questioning everything. Like, okay, how is a baby in space without a helmet? You know what I mean? But at the same time, you want to also not make it too logical to the point where it's devoid of any like emotion or any kind of just fantastical element. Do you know what I mean? Like, I always relate it back to Star Wars. Like, Star Wars makes no goddamn sense if you think about it, like absolutely at all, at any point in any film. But the reason why we go back to it, the reason why we enjoy it, it's become a phenomenon, is the emotion. It's what it makes us feel. So that's why I always argue when I make stuff, that's where that place I go to is, yeah, am I stretching the truth a little bit here? Or does this not make too much sense here? Like, from a realistic perspective, of course. But what's happening in the scene? Like, why can the audience buy into it, right? Suspension of disbelief. Like, why is that? Is because if you can get the audience to that point of believing and like understanding, right? Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Yeah.
The music, the cinematography, but really at its core, the story.
Yeah.
You don't care Chris Pratt's running around with aliens. Like, you just believe it. You don't care that there's a raccoon talking. Like, you feel the movie. You know, my mother always said that. You don't look at the music or take in the music. You feel the music, right? So it's like, that's something that I really, really would advise anyone that gets into this business of storytelling, right? Is just kind of go from a place of your heart, as cheesy as it sounds, like really just create things that drive that emotion instead of the logic always, you know, like this would never happen, or this. Those people that nitpick bother me. It's like, if the story was bad, I understand, or if things don't make sense, 100%. But if you're going to start nitpicking, like, you don't belong in this business. Like, it's an illusion. You know what I mean? And actually, I often argue reality doesn't make sense. There are things that happen to us that there's no lead up, there's no payoff. So why is it that we can accept reality, but we can't accept a movie that does certain things, right? Exactly. So as long as it's in the confines of like the science behind storytelling and it plays by those kinds of rules, you can't help but make your own kind of rules and break them, right? If you will. So, really cool stuff, man. I'm really excited I had this conversation with you. You're a bright guy. You're very talented. And I'm really looking forward to like connecting with you about future projects. I'm serious about that. Yeah. I think we can really collaborate and merge forces and learn a lot from each other. And create a great piece of content together.
Definitely.
So thank you so much, JD Kalantar, for coming on the podcast. You have anything else to say before you leave?
No, thanks for having me. This was a great conversation. You know, it's nice to just connect with new people and talk. I feel like I don't really get to talk with people about this stuff, so it's nice to talk to, you know, another fighting director.
Of course. Yeah,
all this stuff. So it's great. Thanks.
Yeah, man. Been fighting for probably a decade now. But it's all good. We love what we do. Anyway, thank you so much, JD, for coming on the podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll talk soon.